final year in Washington in 2009, Jason Campbell threw for over 3,600 yards at a terrific completion percentage, 65%, a good touchdown to interception ratio. His team did not win, though, 4-12. Last year he played in 12 games. The Raiders won 7 of those as the starting quarterback. He also quarterbacked him to a win off the bench against the San Diego Chargers. We do want to head out to our studios of CSN Mid-Atlantic in suburban Washington, D.C. We bring in the Raider quarterback, Jason Campbell. You and I did not talk on Chronicle Live, Jace, after the last game of the year in Kansas City. How would you assess your 2010 season as the Raiders starting quarterback this past year?
Well, I thought I had a real good year, based on all the things that was going on early in the season, playing and not playing and not really understanding what's going on and everything that was happening. But the fact that, to try to keep our focus and just stay positive about everything and end up putting ourselves in a position towards the end of the season where we was almost able to make the playoffs. We finished the season undefeated in our division. We just got to learn how to win on the road. And I think winning on the East Coast, it would hurt us the most. We lost a close game to Jacksonville and a close game to Arizona. But if we can learn how to win on the road as well as winning our division, I think we're headed in the right direction. Yeah, and you were battered and bruised all year going back to the training camp hit you took in the preseason game against the 49ers. You started 12 games, as I mentioned. You were completely healthy, available to start all 16. I do want to go back to the first choice of the coaching staff to take you from the quarterback position midway through the home opener against the St. Louis Rams. Now, looking back on that, was that more of a Tom Campbell choice to pull you from the Ram game, you think, Chase, or was that Hugh Jackson's call? I disagree. I don't really know. It's just a situation where, it happened, and at the time it happened, I was definitely, I was shocked. And as a competitor, that's something the first time it's happened to me in my career of starting. And in the 4 seasons I've started, to have to go through something like that. But at the same time, I didn't get down about it. It stung a little bit, but at the same time, it gave me an opportunity to sit back and see where things were and see where things are going, and then try to establish something different when I get back in there. And that's just go all out, play as hard as you can, and not worry about trying to please everyone, but just relax and have fun and help your team win.
Jason, the last time I saw you face-to-face was in the locker room after the Kansas City win, and the media was asking you about bringing Tom Campbell back. They were asking all your teammates, not just you, and just about every guy endorsed Coach Campbell coming back. You did not. You were very non-committal, took a very professional approach to what Al Davis had to the side, and he did so about 48 hours later. I'm curious, did Al Davis reach out to you at some point this year, or even after that Kansas City game, and just flat out ask you, Jason, should I bring Tom Campbell back as our head coach next year?
No, he never asked me that question. He never asked me that. The only thing he would ever call and ask me is, hey, are you ready to win this week? Or, I remember playing the Colts. He was like, hey, how come the ball didn't go down the field that much? I was like, hey, it was LJ playing cover 2, Mr. Davis. But no, he never asked me anything like that. And I always kept myself out of the business side of things that deal with the football. It's enough to have to worry about as a quarterback on the field and doing different things. And you don't ever want to be caught in a situation where people think you're, leaning on one side when you have 2 bosses. And Mr. Davis, I respect a whole lot. Coach Campbell, I respect a whole lot, and at the same time, I know it's just something I wasn't going to get involved with because I haven't been there long enough to know the ins and outs, and long enough to know their relationship, or long enough to have a personal relationship like that, where I should be in a position where I have to answer those type of questions.
All right, what about the hiring of Hugh Jackson today? You had a chance to watch the press conference there in suburban Washington today. Did Mr. Davis reach out to you about Hugh Jackson, about should I bring him in as the head coach of this team after the year you had with him? And what's your overall reaction to Hugh Jackson now being your new head coach?
Now, I haven't talked to Mr. Davis about it, and I know it's a decision that's probably going to come soon. But just with the hiring of Hugh, I think it's good for our football team. I think it's just because the fact that he's been with us for a whole year, he knows the ins and outs and what we do offensively and what we need to improve on as an overall team. It gives us an opportunity as a quarterback and young receiving core, to be on the same page for another year, and an opportunity to work together in the same system. And I think that's very important. Stability in the NFL is something that you have to have when you're dealing with a young group, and I thought the guys made a lot of strides this year in the ways that we was going offensively. We doubled everything that they've done a year ago, and the points and yards, and I just feel like we're going in the right direction, with these young guys. And for us to have Hugh Jackson as the head coach and a guy that was our offense coordinator a year ago, I think it definitely leaves us some stability there that's running the same offense again.
Well, now with Hugh going from the OC to the HC, offensive coordinator to head coach, you're going to need a new offensive coordinator. Name out there's a guy you know well, Al Saunders, who was with you in Washington as the assistant head coach in 06 and 07. You had 20 quarterback starts under Al Saunders at that time. What's your reaction if the Raiders do bring in Al Saunders, Jace? Would you be on board with that?
Yeah, he's a guy he's very smart, and he's an offense coordinator that, he knows the ins and outs of the game. I can remember when he was in Kansas City before he came to Washington, he was like ranked the number 1-2 offense in the league every year, and just the consistency of being such a high level. I had the opportunity to be with him under 2 years when I was there in Washington. He's a great guy to be around. He's very professional. Like I said, he's a guy that's very intelligent about the game when it comes to the game of football. So, and him being in Baltimore over the last 2 years and then winning up there, it just goes to show, he knows the winning edge. And this team is all about trying to win in 2011, and that's what we're trying to do. And, Coach Jackson brought the attitude here last year from Baltimore, the winning edge, expecting to win. And every time we play a game, we go out, we don't compromise for anything. We don't want to leave anything out there. We go out, we fight hard, and we believe in each other. And, the guys fought together this year, and we come a long ways. And it's all about working together. And thing that solves it all is just winning. That should be our one and only goal, is win. Everything else take care of itself.
Well, for the first time since 02, the Raiders won as many as they lost this year, which is certainly a step forward. Jason, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts, as always, on Chronicle Live. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Greg.
I think we will hear from Jamarcus again. I want to bring in David White, who covered the Raiders at that time for the San Francisco Chronicle. Was working late night back at 1220 Harbor Bay Parkway. David, I want to lump Al's famous press conferences are the hiring of Tom Cable, which was the / firing of Lane Kiffin, the hiring of you today, which is the / firing of Tom Cable again. But to me, Jamarcus is lumped with all of this because, go back to the spring of 07 when Lane was first hired as the head coach. Publicly, he's come out and admitted this, and Al did this later, that he did not want to draft Jamarcus Russell. He did not want to pick him with that #1 overall pick in 2007. I don't think he had the right offense to match with Jamarcus's skills. But the point is, can we lump this all together, the failure of Lane Kiffin, the failure of Tom Cable, the failure of Jamarcus Russell? Because essentially, when you hire a new coach and a new quarterback, you want them to be married together the way Flacco is with John Harbaugh, and that whole thing just got screwed up right from the outset back in 07.
No, it never worked from the very beginning. Coming out the gate, Lane and Al, they already were butting heads before the draft. And, Lane Kiffin knew what he was getting into. He thought he could change things. This has been the most sordid chapter in Raiders history. You go 2-14 with Art Shell in 2006, and you think, how could it get any worse than that? We now know. He hired Lane Kiffin. He brought in Tom Cable as his offensive line coach. They draft Jamarcus Russell. If anything today, at least they can close the chapter on that book, or close that book altogether and move on.
David, you've been watching Al Davis for a long, long time. You were there for the Kiffin press conference. You've seen some of his great moments, the Richard Seymour press conference. What struck a nerve in you today watching AD go to work?
Well, what really struck a nerve in me is he admitted some things. He admits that he's the one who's made some mistakes. He admits that Jamarcus Russell was a mistake, the way it worked out. He admits with Tom Cable. And he admitted, we don't do background checks very good. What really struck me was that the decision he made back in June, that this thing with Tom Cable wasn't going to work out, but he let it drag on. And I still don't understand why he did that. He wanted to see what came with this lawsuit from Marie Lutz, but all along, he's wanted Hugh Jackson to be his head coach. I don't understand why they wanted to wait this long and let this drag out to why we're doing this today.
So what's the fallout today for Tom Cable's world? Curiously, right after this press conference is over, the Seattle Seahawks announced that he is their new offensive line coach / assistant head coach. But is Tom Cable, in light of the way Al went at him today, not only as a man, but as a football coach, he went at him very strongly, is Tom Cable ever going to be a head coach in the NFL or major college football again?
No, I don't think he'll ever be a head coach in the NFL again. I don't think he ever would have. if he wasn't here with the Raiders when they fired Lane Kiffin 4 games into the season. He's an offensive line coach. Hugh Jackson went out of his way to say what Tom Cable is an exceptional line coach. He's not an exceptional head coach. I think we saw that. I like what he did this year. I think getting this team to 8-8 after what they've been through the previous 8 years was a big feat for all the things he has to deal with. But at the end of the day, this was his one shot. I've talked to him about that. He knew this was his one shot at things. He's going to go back and be a line coach. Maybe I will have him back, you know, at the college level, but I just don't see him getting another shot in the NFL.
Weren't you listening to Al Davis today, David? The reason they went 8-8 had nothing to do with Tom Cable. He had the 8 losses. It was Hugh Jackson who had the 8 wins. David White joining us from 1220 Harbor Bay Parkway. Good to see David again. Covered the Raiders for a long time now, covering the Niners for the San Francisco Chronicle. Let's bring in the panel. This is what I was saying, Ray, about the hiring of Kiffin, the drafting of Jamarcus. I mean, these 3 events, the Kiffin firing, the Cable firing, Jamarcus's ouster, they all go hand in hand because the head coach just did not like the quarterback.
But, and I will say this, that was the first sign that Kiffin was going to go off the reservation with Al. But something else would have come up. Lane Kiffin was not here for the long term. He saw this as a stepping stone to a job he really wanted. He took this because Steve Sarkisian turned the Raiders down. He happened to be the next guy, he happened to be in the next office at USC. And so I said, well, do you want the job? Yeah, okay, I'll take the job. He was not going to be here long term. And if it wasn't Jamarcus Russell, it would have been something else. Yeah, can you lump them together? Sure. But I'm not sure what order you want to put them in. I don't think Jamarcus started this. I think Kiffin started it. Jamarcus makes it worse, and then Cable's the finishing card in the hand.
You know what? What's so troubling is it just seems like it's an endless cycle. A new coach is brought in at the same time the old coach is getting, you know, his whole messy laundry is spilled out there in front of everybody. And, you know, I'm sitting there for 10 minutes while Al's reading the letters that he had written about Cable and all this, you know, legalese and stuff. And Hugh's sitting just right next to him. And it's
what was he doing? We didn't have a camera on him.
It's such an awkward situation. He was just sitting there kind of, you know, expressionless, you know, staring at his own family that's in the front row.
Thinking this is waiting for me in 3 years.
Yeah, exactly. Saying, wait a minute, whatever happened?
I never flew women on the road, honey.
Saying, what happened to Hugh Jackson Day? I mean, instead of looking for coordinators right now, he should be looking for a court reporter to be with him every step of the way through this adventure that's going to unfold over the next year or 2 before he's the guy that's getting trashed in a press conference.
He thought it was the day of the Jackson. It turned out to be the day of the Jackal, I guess.
Oh, yeah,
all right.
The whole show there. I mean, it speaks to one of the Raiders' greatest failings is they don't know how to present a case. They can't fire a coach without turning it into a nightmare.
Right.
And part of this is because they never put a professional face on anything they do, which is why people laugh at them. And they don't deserve to be laughed at all the time, but they invite it by the way they present what is, I think, a reasonable case about firing Tom Cable. They do it in so many wrong ways that it stops being about his coach.
Because they have
the season started last year, all the talk was that Nnamdi wanted to be traded, wanted to go to New York. I think you all remember it. Some of you wrote it. I called him because I could have made a move, and I asked him, do you want to go or don't you want to go? Make up your mind, because I've got to make up my mind. We were very much had time restraints and all. He said, no, I want to stay. I don't want to go. And I think he said that. Then just the other day, you get another signal. I try not to get tied up in that. If we get to the point where we know what the rules are on the collective bargaining agreement, we know what's being done, and we take a look at the Raiders and see what we want to do and see what he wants to do, we'll work on it. But he's a great player, and he does a good job in the community, and so you always like to have that. But can that $17 million bring you 2 or 3 quality players to help you win?
I think Al Davis watches Chronicle Live. We've had that very debate here on the coffee table many a day and night. Isn't